Console, online. HPG connection, online. Educational module, online. All systems, nominal.
Hello, class, and welcome to On the Origin of Battlemechs Podcast, episode 64. Today we are going to be talking about the Alfar. I am your host, Brent Stewart McKee. My co-hosts today are...
I'm Joshua.
And I'm Chandler.
And today our guest host is...
I'm StowGnar.
Now, StowGnar. We know you from Wolfnet and the friendly games we are doing with the regiment over there, but why don't you take a moment to let the audience know about who you are and all the lovely Battletech things you do.
Well, I appreciate the wee little pedestal for a moment there, friend. I'm StowGnar. I stream on Twitch and am beginning to make content for YouTube as well. Almost all Battletech related, come to think of it. I have a couple other niche interests as well, but man, I've been into the whole Battletech universe at times unwittingly since my childhood playing MechWarrior 2. I didn't really realize how much it related to, Battletech and the whole tabletop scene until way later. I played MechWarrior 2 and MechWarrior for unawares of the whole other connection there for like a decade and a half at least.
You know, that's actually something I found a whole bunch when trying to get people into the Battletech universe. I can just be like, hey, do you know MechWarrior? It's that. And they're like, oh.
Oh yeah, I've now turned around and definitely used that as a reference point for others.
Mm-hmm. You remember that game with the giant stompy robots? Yeah, that is better.
Yeah.
No, we're not talking Mech Assault.
Oh.
Only if we must.
Well, then it is the game with the giant stompy robots, but better.
I'll take them however they come, whichever pathway they come through. Because I did play that growing up, so I can't hate too hard. Even though it's true, it's painful to look back on what they try to do in that game with the story.
Yeah, I remember playing that one and being like, glad I rented this. Also, it's fun stompy robots, but this is not my Battletech, but it's not bad, you know.
Yeah.
Hashtag not my Battletech.
It was one of the first games I played online at all.
Yeah, hashtag not my Battletech, right.
Make a stand.
Yeah. Well, today we are talking about one of the mechs that is near and dear to StowGnar's heart, which is why he is joining us today. We are talking about the Alfar, which is a 55-ton machine. It is produced by StowGnar, and as we know, StowGnar has a reputation for heavy and slow mechs. For this reason, throughout the eras, they occasionally have tried to break from that mold and blaze a new trail with interesting designs, most notably the Commando, which we have already talked about. The Alfar is another design aimed to break that mold, and the Alfar was commissioned by Archon Tresel Steiner as part of their effort to diversify the LCF war doctrine. The Alfar was produced by Coventry Metalworks in a bid to produce a homegrown alternative to the Shadowhawk and Griffin. It was well received by pilots, but never saw much deployment outside the LCAF, so the few that did make it into the SLDF, notably requisitioned to the Tamar Tigers, were used during the reunification war in the RimWorlds campaign. While the machine performed well and was loved by the pilots, the technicians and supply officers were not as enamored with the Alfar, as its non-standard parts would lead to extended repair times and costs. As time passed, the standardization of mechs was more refined, and the Griffin, Shadowhawk, and Dervishes would replace the Alfar as it was removed from the line, as it eventually became too expensive to not replace. By the beginning of the First Succession War, only 2 complete models were known to exist and be operational, and both existed in private collections. And by the end of the First Succession War, they were both destroyed in the chaos. The Alfar has the design quirks of non-standard parts, which is not a good one, as we have talked about before.
I personally believe it should also have no ejection capability.
There's a lot of mechs that are like that.
You find if it has non-standard parts, it usually goes extinct at some point.
It did?
Yes.
Exactly. Which is so sad.
Because if you look at the art, there's a medium laser directly in the way of where you need to eject through.
Yep.
I mean, I guess it could have a front ejection seat, but then you're just launching yourself at your opponent.
Don't some of them have like a rear ejection, like a catapult?
Sideways ejection.
Oh, that one's sideways. Okay.
Yes.
I know one of them has a rear.
The crab has rear ejection.
Yeah, there we go.
Little crabby boy.
It's not gonna make it through that giant plate on the front otherwise.
I mean, I could see that, but I also find it amusing if the Lyrans turned the cockpit into a human claymore.
That's awful.
That sounds like something more like what the Cretan
Combine or Capellans would do. Yeah.
Capellans would do, yeah.
Yeah.
That is a funny image, Draconis Combine warrior ejecting forward and drawing his katana in mid-fight to carry the combat to the enemy.
I'm just getting the image of, like the cowboy riding the cannonball. Instead, it's the samurai riding his ejection seat with the katana,
I mean, theoretically, if it's a vibro katana, he could do it.
Until the very end.
Eject me closer so I can hit them with my sword.
Now it's a fight.
So the art for this guy is absolutely fantastic, in my opinion. I love the attention to detail it gets. The most notable things that I find interesting are kind of the protective gauntlets it has over the hands.
Yeah.
I like those. I'm not sure what utility they provide, but they look really cool.
You'd almost think it would have the Battle Fist quirk with them being so like a thick layer like that.
Yeah. And it also looks like the wrist can almost like flip out more so it could use its hands fully. But those are there more to protect the hands actuators when they're not actually being used as hand actuators.
Yeah.
I could see it.
And it has the big disc armors on the shoulder, which is kind of neat. And what I really like about the arm assembly is you can see the joint of rotation halfway up the blanking, not forearm, with the upper arm.
Bicep?
Yeah, and it has that seam running around with all the little pins or little pistons on the side, and that's how it rotates. I think that looks really good.
Visible ball joint. It's kind of more immersive, just built in. You can imagine it in different positions that way, it seems like.
Yeah.
It is interesting because that implies that the lower elbow joint doesn't have any additional, it just has the straight up and down, in and out kind of movement of a human arm, and the shoulder apparently doesn't have enough. I don't know, it's interesting. I'm not sure I see the need for that, because you've got a full-blown ball joint in the shoulder. Looks like it should have a really good range of motion, and so there shouldn't really be a need for that. So it's kind of an interesting quirk. I'd almost expect this to be able to have a quirk where it can shoot directly behind itself, if that's actually a rotational joint.
Oh yeah, the hyper-extending actuators.
I was just thinking, are you saying it should have the extended actuators quirk? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what you're telling me is that is why this thing has non-standard parts. Oh,
I see it coming together there.
Could be. I also want to say that if this thing hadn't gone extinct, it would be great for mercenaries, because that's a lot of advertising real estate on those shoulder guards.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
I mean, it wouldn't be too hard to run a banner off that little fin on the back as well.
Yeah.
Just make sure you're always running so that it stays up in the air.
You got the big shins, the big right pec.
When you jump, you become one of those airplanes that drags the banner through the sky.
Yeah.
Where is your mech, peasants?
I do also really like its legs. It's got the kind of double knee design. I'm not exactly sure the technical term on that one, but and it ends in these nice forked toes, which look like they can do some damage if they're going to kick something. I don't know. It looks like a very aggressive machine, and I like it. And the stats on it are also quite good.
Yeah.
Likewise, for sure. I think it does, I don't know. It does a very similar thing that the Wolverine does in my mind. That's why I ended the portmanteau with Origin earlier, because it's just got, the PPC is its actual only long-range weapon, and then it's mostly kind of a brawler, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. I can agree with that sentiment.
Speaking of that, do we want to cover its weight and weaponry?
Absolutely.
One of my favorite weight classes.
It has a tonnage of 55, and the first model we're going to talk about is the AL-A1, and it has a movement profile of 583. It has a medium laser in the head. It's got an SRM-6 in the left torso. It's got a PPC in the right arm, and it has 2 medium lasers in the left arm. It also has ferro and endo steel, 1 ton of ammo for that SRM in the left torso, and 15 single heat sinks.
I mean, endo steel and ferro over a XL engine is usually a good buy, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Definitely helps that survivability.
Yeah, PPC SRM, that's a classic Griffin loadout right there.
Yeah, like a Griffin 2 and the best Griffin.
Use the extra tonnage to sink in some of the Wolf Shadowhawk aspects with the medium lasers.
Yeah, I think this is a very nice machine, but I also see with the art all the non-standard parts, so I can understand why it went extinct.
Just a quick glance at it, I don't know what else uses those long, weird, cylindrical actuators like that. So yeah, I could see it falling out of favor for sure.
So the Alfar AL-1A was seen in 2573, and it has a battle value of 1447 and a point value of 36. And it was short-lived enough that it only really got one variant, which is listed in the TRO that we looked at, but doesn't get any actual official record sheet. But I was able to make one up in Solaris Skunkworks, and so this guy was seen in 2573, and it is the AL-A1 Dark Elf, or Dakaflar, I think.
Dokalfar.
I'm probably butchering that, I apologize, but it translates to Dark Elf. And it takes out the SRM-6 and the 3 medium lasers and replaces it with a PPC.
So double PPC.
A questionable decision.
Yep.
He's double fisting, man.
Yeah, with 15 heat sinks, that's going to heat you up real fast.
Oh, yeah.
You fire both one time and then slow down, and then you better not fire both again.
The model was lauded for its long-range punch, which, obviously 2 PPCs will give you that, but the heat was a problem. It was often dubbed a mini Warhammer for obvious reasons.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, if you compare the Dokalfar to the original 6R Warhammer, it's not really missing out on a lot. It's faster. It's actually got more armor because of the Pharaoh.
Yeah.
It's got 3 less heat sinks, and then it's missing all of the secondary armor. But I mean, that's what happens when you add 15 tons. And then you also get jump jets to boot.
Well, the original did have jump jets. It doesn't drop or lose any armor or heat sinks. The weaponry is a full trade out for the PPC, but you definitely are going to be toasty.
Yeah.
It has to be used carefully for sure.
Yeah, generating 5 extra compared to 2 extra for a Warhammer.
Yeah. So this guy's got a battle value of 1458 and a point value of 33.
I am really curious why you are such a fan of this one, StowGnar, instead of just going with a Griffin or a Wolverine.
Well, I feel like it pulls kind of, I don't know, the best thing from the holy trinity of each one, of the Griffin, Shadowhawk, and Wolverine. I feel like it fills a similar niche without being the exact same. Maybe it's because I've used it enough times now where I'm like, it fits how I play. Come to think of it, I use every 55-tonner pretty much every chance I can get.
So that's your preferred weight class then?
Yeah, it really is. I don't know why. It just it often ends up being the best combination of firepower and maneuverability for me. And even though this guy doesn't have the 5 jump jets of the Griffin, right? He's still I feel like that amount of walking movement is enough to get where you want to, like an advantageous shot, without jostling your ability to shoot too much. So he's very focused on putting the damage out, maybe not dodging it so much.
Yeah, and I mean the 3 jump definitely shifts it from being a movement jump orientated mech to a jump utility design, because it's...
Yeah, that's a GTFO button.
Yeah. And, that will also help with your to-hit number, of course.
Yeah, and I like the 3 jump a lot better when I'm playing Mech Warrior Online or Mech 5.
That's true.
Just because 5 jump in a realistic situation isn't going to help you a whole lot more than 3 jump. You just need it to bypass some terrain. You're not flying around the battlefield like you do in Classic.
Yeah.
Well, that's fair. There is a real loss there.
And I think I really want to know whether the Alfar got non-standard parts because of the era it was produced in, or if it just, like, let's say they were to introduce the Alfar tomorrow, would it actually still be non-standard parts? Because they've had 500-ish years of advancement in design, 600 years-ish. Like, would those still be non-standard?
Man, that's a good point. Kind of reminds me of a Templar even. I think you have a really good point there.
Although there's a distinct possibility that if they were to bring a Alfar line back up on Coventry, they would retool the design to use standard parts as opposed to like what have we innovated, what can we update.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't just do that towards its end.
Yeah.
The hypothetical was assuming the Alfar never existed in the first place.
No, absolutely.
And it was to pop into existence.
I see.
But it is a sweet little machine, and thank you for joining us to share your love of it. And I can see it definitely rounding out that sort of bracket in the battlefield. And if you were looking for something a little different because you've played with a Shadowhawk and Griffin so many times, this could have a lot of appeal. I can definitely see that, especially if you're a House Steiner fan.
Yeah. It feels like the last possible combination of the different qualities of the 55 tonners.
Mm-hmm. But since Josh mentioned it, I can't unsee the inability to eject now, so I guess thanks for that.
Clanners don't eject. Just give it to Wolf in Exile.
I mean, pilot safety is a thing.
I mean, here at On the Origin of Battlemechs Podcast, we have mentioned more than once our appreciation for OSHA. So,
Or at least full head ejection systems.
Oh, yeah.
As a Iron Warriors player in Warhammer 40k, I also approve of OSHA. You gotta hazard stripe every.
That must explain my dislike. I'm a son of Dorn.
It feels like it would be a long discussion.
Disappointing.
And it's still Battletech because it's Warhammer.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And the Docklefar is a mini Warhammer. We're good.
there you go.
Oh, okay. All right. I see now.
So, unfortunately, we don't have any notable pilots for this guy because it is a very short-lived design, but it is definitely interesting, and I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it. So we're going to move on to our novel talk for the episode, and today we are going to talk about the novel Freebirth, which I'm not sure if I'm going to have to censor when I'm editing this. Anyway.
Maybe yes.
That's true. Never really thought of that. It's like a slur as a title.
Yeah.
If our clanner constituents can't handle us calling something by its name that was given to it,
Oh, that's true.
they can file a complaint with Comstar. I hear their address is on Tukiad, maybe?
Yeah.
In base.
Just remember when they call your number to assume the customer compliance position.
Yes.
Yeah.
So can we talk about how Joanna is a complete waste of oxygen?
How so?
Okay, so I haven't read it since high school. I started rereading it for this, and she has no discipline, no self-control. Everything she runs off is raw emotion and anger.
Mm-hmm.
Her assumption of the title warrior is an insult to every actual warrior who has ever existed. Because a warrior has discipline. A warrior has self-control. A warrior doesn't just fly off the handle and pick fights with somebody because they're pissed off.
I mean, to be fair, clan society.
Jade Falcon Society specifically. They're really okay with you being guided by your anger.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
That's interesting because she kills that warrior. And I even though she refuses to call him a warrior because he technically hasn't graduated Sibco and cadet training,
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, Shield in that first couple chapters was more of a warrior than Joanna ever could hope to be, because he showed that he had discipline and self-control and didn't just fly off the handle at her. And I am now convinced that if that peeler had landed on Joanna's forehead, Malvina Hazen would be ill-clanned because Shield would have made a smarter, cooler-headed, more calculating Clan Jade Falcon.
I mean, I think you were overestimating Joanna's overall pull with the clans. My read on her, and I have a soft spot in my heart for her. I really like her as a character. I don't believe I would get along with her at all, but as a character, I really like her. My read on her was that she has always been a blunt instrument, but she is very good at what she does, and what she does is train people,
Kill things.
hurt people, and kill things. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like her superpower is similar to, like, a strange comparison here, but similar to Batman's, where they just have infinite determination and it gets them through a lot.
And they can take a beating.
Yeah, exactly.
She is the person that's kept around because you just point her at something and say, deal with it. Just kill it. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just have to kind of mop up the issue around her. And apparently, you know, the leadership of Jade Falcon thinks it's worth it.
To me, she's more like a defective machine gun, because once you start triggering, that gun just runs away from you and does not stop shooting and gets out of control until it runs out of hand.
Tat-tat-tat.
And that is a useless weapon on the battlefield, because a weapon that you cannot effectively control and aim to do the mission you need it to do is not a weapon you want.
That's fair.
As a character, she is a great character to hate.
Confirmed.
She's like an early Malvina without the discipline to become effective.
Yeah.
But she also, to me, she comes across as a very simple instrument from the author to move certain things in a direction. Oh, we need this to happen because we need it to happen. Well, Joanna's our resident loose cannon who will do something stupid that we can use to make this happen. So let's have her do something idiotic and volatile. And hey, now we can have our other thing happen because she was the catalyst. I don't know. This was one of the first books I read in the Battletech universe back in high school. There's a lot of Jade Falcon stuff in my library for whatever reason.
It just worked out that way?
It just worked out that way. And because they had the 2 out of the 3 Jade Falcon trilogy books. They had a number of the Twilight of the Clans, but not the whole series. But this one was one of them. And I think those books are what gave me my undying contempt for clan society in general and Falcons and Jaguars specifically.
Word.
I mean, fair. These books do not particularly portray them in a good light, and I don't think Freebirth actually portrays either of the clans in a good light. It humanizes a lot of the characters and makes you empathize with them, but it doesn't portray the power structure as anything good.
Friendly.
Which is probably a good idea.
Yeah. Now, we've heard your thoughts on Joanna. What is your thoughts on Horse?
So far, and going off what I remember last time, I like him. He's a much more rounded character when it comes to just a character. And then as a warrior, he has the capacity to actually think things through, which Joanna doesn't seem to.
No.
So I like him, but honestly, there's characters you remember and there's characters who are kind of forgettable. And I didn't even remember Horse was in here until I started rereading it. And it's like, oh yeah, he's a character, I guess. So I don't hate him, but he's not very memorable for me.
That's fair. Now, I actually really like Horse, and one of the reasons I like him a lot is because I really feel he embodies the hypocrisy of the Jade Falcons, especially since after Tukid, he is the shadow of Aiden. You know,
yeah,
like this obviously is reaching back to other novels, but the Jade Falcons have a tendency to be very traditional or conservative, in my opinion. But when someone is good enough to run the gauntlet and force them to be like, no, you've got to respect me, I'm this good, like Aiden does, like his daughter Diana does, then they kind of elevate these people to a mythical level or elevate them quite a bit because they're just that good. And Horse is just that good, but because he's Freebirth, he's not ever going to get a blood name or anything like that. But he's a great lens to see all of the issues or the cracks and rot in clan society. And I think that is a very interesting lens to look at things through.
He's a good window into the evil empire.
Yeah, feels like the old story, The Whipping Boy, through a very different lens.
That was one thing rereading through this, just how contemptible the morality system that Nicholas Kerensky set up and trapped these people into, treating just the genetic determinism, essentially racial superiority, lack of empathy, and the value of human life.
They literally have a caste system.
Yeah.
It ain't great, fam. Not one to emulate.
Nope.
Yeah. There's a reason I got a Clan Wolverine patch from the Kickstarter.
Oh, rip.
So the overarching story of this book is we are setting up what is happening on Huntress right before everybody shows up to kick in the door, basically. We get to see what happens on planet from mostly a little outpost on one of the mountain ranges that was gifted to the Jade Falcons by the Smoke Jaguar Khan as at the beginning of the invasion, if I'm remembering correctly, and it's just this little LAM research outpost that doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, I'm really curious. These Solama, this outpost, it's actually one of the more interesting things in this book because they're Jade Falcon warriors who aren't as crazy as regular Jade Falcons, which makes all the normal Jade Falcons think that these Solama are the crazy ones. Kind of a
social standard thing.
well, I was thinking the Socrates thing with the cave. The people in the cave think the person who's been outside the cave is the crazy one.
Yeah.
When they're actually the sane.
Yeah, Salama have been through the ringer.
Yeah, I really liked the setting with the little research outpost. Not just because it was nice seeing a portion of clan society that wasn't warriors, just warriors. We're all warriors here. Like, no, there's scientists and not scientists, and yeah, there's some warriors, but they're not like I am the warriorist warrior that ever did warrior. Fear me. They're more down to earth. It gives you a look at what clan society can be when it isn't just we are warriors.
It's nice to have some characters with depth.
Yes. And then also I really like the slight, weaving in of what's this lead scientist doing? What's he up to? And you start get the societies seeping in slowly, drip by drip.
Little bits of foreshadowing.
Yeah, someone who came in and worked my way backwards effectively and knew about the society and then read the Twilight of the Clan series. I was like, oh, I see it. It's right there.
I mean, that's a hallmark of good writing, in my opinion. If you can go back and find things that you might have missed or not completely caught at the time.
True.
How old is Joanna at this point?
I think she's got to be late 30s, early 40s.
Because I tried looking it up because when she was looking in the mirror describing herself, it sounded like she was describing a 60-year-old woman.
Yeah, actually, I believe truth be told, I have not read the Twilight of the Clan series, but just going by how old they made her seem just in, Children of Kerensky. Or no, the Jade Phoenix trilogy, sorry.
Yes.
She, I would think, would be in her 40s, maybe even early 50s at this point.
And she's also been a warrior her entire life. That's going to age you. At least that's what I've heard. I don't have any personal experience.
It's supposed to.
She's just constantly described as past her prime.
But again, clan standards.
Right. So, for them, it would probably be 30s through 50s, right?
I mean, she's definitely not in her prime in her head.
No. Self-doubt is a very dangerous thing.
Lack of discipline is worse.
Put them together, and what do you got?
Bad
Joanna.
So, yeah, that is kind of the overview and our thoughts on Book 4. It sets the stage for things to come, both the society and the imminent invasion of Huntress. And looking back, remembering young Brent was like, oh, but this, why? I want invasion. I want mech battles. I want inner sphere fighting clans. But thinking back, it's, definitely was a necessary book.
Yeah,
it was fun seeing Rasu Howell again after reading Forever Faithful and seeing what happened to him post-invasion.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of get a look at him again before the invasion happened, and he kind of went to seed.
Yeah, see him spiraling.
Yeah, that stepping stone just really felt completely in line with his story arc, and so it was nice because well-rounded character, right?
Yeah, and it's fun coming back after reading some of the new stuff and seeing how the current authors and planning staff are trying to really make everything match up and fit with what's come before. But at the same time, I feel like the writing has definitely improved in the last 30 years, 20 years.
X amount of time.
23 years since this book came out.
Has it really been that long? Oh, I feel old. Anyway.
It happens.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. I didn't realize this when I was reading either the Twilight of the Clan series or the Forever Faithful, but Howell doesn't stop after Forever Faithful. He is still in the storylines. He's still around. He's still kicking. He gets his mitts on some pretty fancy stuff. I will not spoil it, but
oh yeah, he has a warship at one point.
Yeah. And he also gets a very nice mech, one that's easily one of my favorites. And no, it's not just because it has an AC-20, although that helps.
It really makes me curious to see what Howell and these other Jade Falcon warriors, if we see Solama like that in the Ill Clan era, and Alaric Ward sets a precedent where we're not just discarding warriors because they're over 25 or over 30 or whatever it is. Especially with the Jade Falcon losses, they're not going to be able to discard Solama the way they used to.
Oh yeah.
And I think we know from what happened to Smoke Jaguar and the Fidelis, from what we're seeing happening with the Razelhog Dominion and a little bit with the Raven Alliance, the only way to redeem clanners is to break clan society and reshape it into something more human. I'm not going to say more humane. Something more human. And I think Alaric Ward has that chance as the First Lord, especially with the Falcons and the losses they've taken, and with the Reborn Smoke Jaguars as a template, a guide. And I would be very curious, because I've mentioned before, Blaine does a very good job of making me come to love clan characters in clans that I traditionally hate because of these Twilight of the Clan books and the society that Nicholas Kerensky created. So I'm very interested to see if they achieve something like that going forward.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, I'll read it because I'll just read anything Battletech, right?
Pretty much.
It helps.
Which I know we don't have a news segment, but I'm really excited because they've started reprinting Dark Age novels.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, that's definitely something we can shout out, because we've mentioned before that we weren't sure what was going on with the rights of all of that, and so seeing them at least be produced as ebooks is great, because I know Chandler had some issues finding some of them to complete his collection and get the entire story.
Fine addition to my collection.
Also, I like the new art. I think it looks quite nice on the ones I've seen so far.
Yeah, and, it was nice being able to read the Free Worlds League.
Looks like they're trying to keep the original cover, or at least an homage to it. Because so far, I believe both novels that have come out, and you can get them in paperback, print on demand.
Nice.
POD?
The Ghost War has the same mech on the front. They changed the rest of the art, so there's more going on, but it's the same exact mech on the front as the original Dark Ages Ghost War novel.
Cool. I like all the homage art that they've been doing for a good while now. Like the, oh boy, I forget which book cover it is, but the one that they made into a poster as well in the Clan Invasion Kickstarter of Phoenix Hawk fighting off elementals that it's just seeing for the first time.
Oh, yeah, that's from the...
From one of the Children of Kerensky books, isn't it?
Yeah, that we've talked about him. His name's escaping me. He was a notable Hyatt for the...
Well, Shinyodama is...
Shinyodama, yeah.
Yes, the Phoenix Hawk.
Yeah, Shinyodama's the pilot.
Yeah.
But I can't remember which book, but yeah, I like the direction they're taking with just reviving a lot of art, like good setups for more modern art pieces. Like they like the angle or the content, so they draw it in a newer style. I like that idea.
I also am here for that. I think it's great because just more content is where I'm at,
Yeah.
Definitely.
So for our data dive today, we are going to look at the Lyran Commonwealth with part 6 of their history and content warning suicide. When last I spoke of the history of the Lyran Commonwealth, we had learned of the death of the Archon at the hands of 5 radicalized youth that implicated Duke Reynold of Fatima, the half-brother of the dead Archon, and the uncle to Michael Steiner, the new Archon, and Stephen Steiner, the commander of the LCAF. The trial proceeded, and the defense was unable to refute any of the prosecution's claims, much to the lament of Michael and Stephen, and a significant portion of the population who believed that the Duke was innocent of the death of his half-brother. The weather is noted for not helping the situation, as Thark had experienced its hottest summer to date, only helping to drive up tensions, as it is medically noted that when humans are in hot environments are more prone to conflict. When the trial concluded, Michael used every excuse and opportunity to delay sentencing, not wishing to put his beloved family member to death. The only logical sentence for the crime was death. During this entire time, Michael had also bent the law and statutes protecting planetary autonomy to the breaking point by dispatching what was essentially an invasion of LIC agents, Lyran Intelligence Corps, to investigate Fatima. At the 11th hour, when Michael was running out of delaying tactics, he finally received word from Fatima and evidence that exonerated the Duke, his uncle. The truth of the matter is that Graf, which is a title I found out while researching this, it's a lower one. It is also Graffini, I believe, is how it's pronounced.
I believe it's it's the German equivalent to Count.
Yes. Alfonso de Simon, a minor noble of Fatima, had orchestrated the assassination plan in a bit of revenge for being stripped of lands and powers by the Duke for abuse of power. The assassins and Alfonso were all executed, and Reynolds was released with a full pardon. The resolution and distribution of Alfonso's confession helped diffuse the tensions in the populace, as violence in the street was becoming common, but control had barely been maintained by the establishment. By 2468, the campaign along the Free World League and the Draconis Combine border had dragged for 5 years, and the last year's progress was severely hampered by the political necessities on Tharkad. The Free World League and the Draconis Combine made good use of this time, as both gathered intel by espionage and black ops operations, and when complemented with battlefield salvage, they were able to jumpstart their own mech production facilities, and now fielded several regiments each. Both the Free World League and the Draconis Combine started a counteroffensive in the hopes of regaining lost territory, but progress was slow as the LCAF were now seasoned veterans and experts in mech tactics, and the DCMS and the FWLM were learning the basics. In 2471, Tharkad had a royal event that was the talk of the Commonwealth, even before the dark cloud cast itself over the events. For 2471 would be the year of the double wedding of Archon Michael Steiner and Regina McQueston, and Stephen Steiner and Margaret Olson. Regina was the last living member of the McQueston family and Geoff of Lochmar on Skye, and Margaret was a senior officer in a local tank regiment and from a minor noble family of Tharkad. The night before the wedding, Tatiana Steiner, the youngest sister of Michael and Stephen, committed suicide. Tatiana having been diagnosed with an outdated medical term for severe major depression, Tatiana 2 years before had started an affair with a married man whose identity to this day is lost, and in a final bid to secure him for herself became pregnant and had a son, Robert Steiner. This was unsuccessful, and for the next 2 years Tatiana found joy in her son and loved him dearly, but was still lost to depression for her lost lover. After her death, many stashes of medication were found in her home, showing that she not only succumbed to the isolation herself, but her friends and family turned a blind eye to her pain and neglect of self-care, reinforcing the feeling of isolation and abandonment. The Archon, devastated by the news, did not halt or postpone the wedding as many urged him to do. Michael felt the ceremony should continue on schedule, as to not fall victim to the same depression that had taken his beloved sister. And so it did, and by all accounts, the event was lovely, if somber. But sadly, for the growing Steiner family, it was but a fragment of the tragedy to come. For less than a month after the wedding, Tharkad City was hit by a massive earthquake that leveled all of the Triad area, including most of the royal palace. The list of dead and missing was massive and included Regina McQueston, 67 representatives of the Estate General, ironically debating building code statutes at the time, and the young Robert Steiner. Archon Michael Steiner was broken by grief. First, he lost his sister and now his beloved city and new wife. He opened what little remained of the palace to refugee efforts and mobilized the nobility into relief efforts and search teams. Quite literally, dukes and representatives were working food lines and digging through rubble.
Sounds like a good thing for snobby nobles to be doing.
You know, as I was reading that, I was thinking that that was a good way to keep them grounded and in touch with the general population.
Nope. Nothing like a little noblesse oblige.
Sorry, I'm not familiar with that one.
It's a concept from English nobility. Basically, summed up, it's if you've been given this privilege and power, you have a duty to those less fortunate to look out for them and aid them.
So the old English for Uncle Ben's pep talk?
Yes. For royals.
Yeah. By the third day, search and rescue had found the child Robert Steiner. As fate still had a role for him to play, he was not crushed by debris. Instead, 2 I-beams had fallen in a way to create an air pocket that protected the 2-year-old for 3 days until rescue teams arrived. Against all odds, Robert had survived but required immediate medical attention. Sadly, he would be one of the last individuals found alive. As Tharkad City started to stabilize, news from the front arrived, and the Draconis Combine had taken this opportunity to strike at Nox in a bid to retake what they had lost. Michael, still reeling from the events on planet, reacted by renouncing his title of Archon and bestowing it to his brother Stephen, proclaiming that his grief was too much for him to rule, but he more than had the capacity to fight. Stephen Steiner was sworn into the office of Archon in the empty snow-covered field that once was the palace throne room. Michael took command of the Lyran Commonwealth forces on Nox and commanded the first large-scale mech versus mech engagement in Lyran Commonwealth history. It is also historically important as it is the conflict that Michael died in. The Lyran Commonwealth forces faced off against a Sword of Light regiment. The conflict lasted 3 hours, and Michael and his forces were able to penetrate the Cretan lines and fan out into lance-sized units and cause havoc and destruction on the Draconis Combine supply lines and reserve supplies. While his soldiers did this, Michael drove hard for the command headquarters, destroying it and killing the senior Cretan officers before being killed himself by the Draconis Combine reinforcements. Michael's body was returned to Tharkat and laid to rest in the new throne room beside his father. This is where we will leave off today, with a new Archon, a capital being rebuilt, and the pressure being exerted on both of their borders.
You know, history's full of sad things, but sometimes I think it's worse for characters in books. Because the first rule of writing good stories is to give your characters problems and tragedies they have to overcome.
It's true. It's more of a necessity than just a happenstance.
I mean, he did get an extra helping of that grief, though, right?
Yeah, they laid it on thick.
Yeah. Our sources for today are Sarna, Battletech Battlemech Manual, Master Unit List, Solaris Skunkworks, Historical Reunification War, and Sourcebook House Steiner. This podcast is made possible by our supporters on patreon.com/On the Origin of Battlemechs, link in the description. Our social media on Twitter is at Origin of Mechs. We also have a community Discord, the Armory of Ouroboros, link in the description. You can email us at ontheoriginofbattlemechs@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, please leave a review on your platform of consumption, tell your friends about us, and share on your community platform of choice. Special thanks to my friend Laura for the intro and outro. Class dismissed. Everybody have a great day.
Peace out, Mech Warriors.
Stay safe out there.
See ya.
Module complete. System standby. Would you like to load the next module?